experimental guinea pigs as well for the new system. So I hope people will be careful and kind to me if something terrible goes wrong during the proceedings. I'm sure it won't. Can I welcome everyone first of all, and can I invite Elizabeth Ann to run through the procedural notes and take the sit-in, please.
Thank you, Chair. So just really to remind everybody how the system works. So you have your microphone system. If you want to request to speak, you just press the button, and it's good practice again to just unpress when you've finished speaking. For those attending in the chamber, if you're using your laptop to view your papers, can you ensure that you aren't joining the meeting via Confero, and also ensure that your mic is muted using the F5 and F8 buttons on your keypad. For those participating remotely, if you need to get a message to the clerk or chair, for example when raising a point of order, please use the chat button. The meeting will be recorded as well as being made available on the Council's YouTube channel. When a member has a declaration of interest, they are required to leave the meeting prior to consideration of that item. Please advise at that stage that you are leaving the meeting. For those participating remotely, you'll be sent a text or an email, Teams message, advising when you can rejoin the meeting. For those participating remotely, if you lose connection or if you have any technical issues during the meeting, if you can please alert the clerk's assistant by text if possible. And the mobile number is 0738 540 3101, and contact will be made with colleagues in IT for assistance. So we're now going to start recording the meeting, so if you bear with me one moment. Okay, that's the meeting now recording, so I will now take the statement of the Community and Enterprise Resources Committee on Tuesday the 9th of August 2022. I can see that we have present Councillors Anderson, Barker, Brogan and Brown. Councillor Carmichael? No. I have apologies from Councillor Chalmers, but Councillor Ross is present as a substitute for Councillor Chalmers. Sorry, Councillor Clark, my apologies. Also present we have Councillors Convery, Corbett, Cowan, Cowie and Devlin. Also present is Councillor Dewar. Councillor Fagan? No. Councillor Ferguson-Miller, are you present? Apologies, thank you. Councillor Gowland is present. Councillor Horn? No. Councillor Johnson-Dempsey is present. Councillor Lennon? Councillor Lockhart is present, as is Councillor MacDonald and McCallan. Councillor McCreary, you're also present. Councillor McLachlan is present. Councillor Nugent? Oh, I can see that you are present, Councillor Nugent. Councillor Toner? And you're also present. Councillor Watson is also present. We also have Councillor Falconer in attendance today, as well as a number of officers. And with that, I'll pass you back to the Chair to commence today's business. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Reports presented to committee today, one covering the final outturn position for the resource for 21-22 financial year, and the second covering the current financial year, the new year now 22-23, up to period 2 of our financial year, which is the 20th of May. So turning to the first report, this provides information on the actual expenditure against the budget for the period 1st of April 2021 through to the 31st of March 2022 for community and enterprise resources. It's the final report presented to committee for the financial year and outlines the final outturn position for the resource in relation to the budget and also our probable outturn forecast. It also outlines the final cost of COVID for the resource for the year, and this position has been approved as part of the Council's overall financial position within the Executive Committee in June this year. So paragraph 5, the main financial implications of the report, outlines a position for the resource at the 31st of March, a reported overspend of 4.507 million after the approved transfers to reserves. However, removing the overspend in respect of additional costs for COVID, this leaves an underspend of 515,000 in respect of the resource's core budget. The total cost of COVID for the resource is 5,022,000, and this includes additional but unbudgeted costs of 3.177 million, and this excludes the business support grants, which, as you know, are fully funded. These costs are outlined in Appendix G, and in the main relate to staff costs, cleaning materials, PPE, equipment, transport and increased costs of waste disposal, all supporting the resources response across the year to the pandemic. The resources COVID position also includes the impact for loss of income at 2.326 million, and this mostly covers parking income, school meals and private care of gardens. And this is offset by an underspend in the budget for food at 481, and also the budget for the fireworks event. As mentioned before, the core budget position for the resource for the year is an underspend of 515,000, and this reflects an underspend in employee costs in the areas of facilities, streets, waste and fleet and environmental services, and an over-recovery of income within the planning and economic development, offsetting any overspend in the fleet services in respect of the timing of efficiencies. And full variance explanations across each of the services are outlined in Appendix B through to F at the bottom of the page. As I've mentioned, this position reported in the paper includes approved transfers to reserves, and these are detailed at the bottom of each of the appendices for the service areas, and these were approved at the Executive Committee again in June as part of the overall position for the Council. We do have our standard budget environments, and again these are outlined in each of the appendices B to F, and these represent updates to the Community and Enterprise budget from December 21 through to the 31st of March this year, and covers 3 or 4 main areas: transfers to and from reserves, capital and budget environments to reflect year-end accounting requirements, updates to reflect how we delivered our services, and transfer of budget between resources, mostly in areas of pay award funding, utilities, etc., and where we have established budget to reflect the receipt of external income. So if I can refer committee back to paragraph 2, the committee is asked to approve the following recommendations: that the Community and Enterprise Resource outturn position as at the 31st of March 2022 is an overspend of 4.507 million after approved transfers to reserves, and it's noted that this in the main relates to the 21-22 COVID costs and a 515 underspend on the core budget, and the proposed budget environments as detailed in Appendix B to F are also approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Louise. Any questions on the report? No questions, no questions. Thank you very much. Can I then move formally the approval of the recommendations in the report?
I'll second it.
And I think it is being dealt with at the moment.
It has been dealt with, or
it's ongoing.
it's ongoing, yeah. Do we need to pause to deal with it?
It's currently okay. It's maybe just a reminder for people to lean forward to speak into their mics. So the message was it was better again, but I think if people just maybe come closer to their microphones, that might help.
I wonder if it's the positioning of the microphone here. Maybe move it slightly. No, I can't move it. It should pick me up, shouldn't it, from either way?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Let's continue and let's hope there's visibility and audibility as we go forward. Item 3 is the Community and Enterprises Revenue Budget Monitoring Statement 22-23, pages 17 to 24. Again, Louise, to speak on that.
So this is the second report for committee today, and this presents information on the new year revenue budget position covering the period 1st of April through to the 20th of May 22, which is period 2 of our financial year. So as I say, first report to committee for the new financial year 22-23, and it is our early reported position for the new year. Paragraph 5 outlines the financial implications for the resource, and as at the 20th of May, we are reporting a minor overspend of £1,000 against the phase budget, and the variance explanations for each service area are detailed in the appendices B to F where appropriate. This time there is no separate reporting for COVID as we move into the new financial year, as additional funding received to support ongoing pressures have been incorporated into the new year budgets for the resource. And for the resource, this includes parking and waste. So we have the standard budget variants, and these reflect movements within our budget, again from the 1st of April through to the 20th of May, and they cover a few of the main areas where we've had to establish budget in respect of funding for the Strategic Waste Fund, our strategic investments and for fuel costs. Budget realignments, again, to reflect how we deliver our services and across our services. Transfer of budgets for capital funded from revenue, and the creation of budget, again, to reflect the receipt of external income to the Council. So if we can refer committee back to paragraph 2, the committee is asked to approve the following recommendations: that an overspend of £1,000 as at the 20th of May, as detailed in Appendix A of the report, be noted, and that the proposed budget variants as detailed in Appendices B through to F be approved. Thank you, Chair.
Louise, just for clarity, could you actually explain temporary budgets that are noted in the appendixes, just so people understand what we're talking about?
Where we have received a temporary budget for 1 year only, for example, so it's not permanent to the resource, that will only have been received for 1 year.
Any questions on the report? Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just wondering, on page 20, the variant number 1 is due to vacancies within school crossing patrollers. This isn't anything new. We've always suffered this, but I just wonder, how are we faring with it? Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? Bearing in mind this is important for the safe routes to school, which is up for an award, and along with the 3 others, I'd like to congratulate all the officers who have done the work on this. But are we getting on top of this? Is it better or worse?
I know there's issues of vacancies across a number of departments and things outside the council as well. Louise, can you say something on that?
Yeah, so there are a range of vacancies across the service, councillor. School crossing patrol has been one of them. These are actively being recruited. But again, it's maybe Eileen will want to comment on it, but the service is still being delivered. I don't know if there's anything else, David, in terms of the operational side, but certainly we are managing to deliver the service at the moment, but we're actively recruiting these posts.
You happy with that, John?
Yeah, I think David wants to speak.
Yes, David.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, just as Louise says, Councillor Anderson, as you're aware, we continuously try to recruit for school crossing patrollers. The whole recruitment market at the moment is very deflated, and so it's difficult to get people to recruit people, in particular often the age bracket of those that do school crossing patrol work. It's difficult at the moment to try and encourage people to take part, but we are still continuing to push that as much as we can. Okay.
Thanks very much. I think this is a theme we're going to have to come back to at various times, I'm sure, as you know, John, on this one. Any other questions? People happy with the report?
Chair, yeah, I don't see any further hands, but could I just put a reminder just to ensure that the positioning of the mic is as best as it can be, just in terms of those speaking in the chamber, please.
Mm-hmm. Is that working all right with me? Because I'm kind of in between microphones. Are people hearing me all right? Yeah, okay. Right, okay, in that case, can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Moving on to item 4, which is the equivalent capital budget monitoring 2021-22. And in this instance, it's Lorraine O'Hagan to speak to it.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, committee. As the Chair explained, this is the first of 2 capital monitoring reports, one for the old year and one for the new year. So agenda item 4 then looks at the old financial year and takes us to the 31st of March 2022. And this was the position as part of the overall capital programme that was reported to Executive Committee back in June. So section 3 gives you the background and explains the budget for the year. The budget reported at the last meeting of this committee was in December last year, and that was 44.115 million. Since that last meeting, we had adjustments approved by the Executive Committee in February of this year, and that took us to a revised budget for the year of 41.903 million. Section 4 provides the financial implications then in terms of the paper. So section 4.1 notes the programme of 41.903 and a final spend position for the financial year of 34.685 million. So there's a difference of just over £7.2 million on the approved programme. Section 4.2 explains the main projects which are responsible for this underspend, and there are a few of them, and if anybody has any particular questions I can take them at the end. And section 4.3 notes that any underspend on these projects along with the funding will carry forward into the new financial year as required, and I'll give you an update on the 22-23 programme as part of the next report. Section 4.4 looks at the accounting adjustments, and this is something that we bring to committee usually at the start of the year and then again at the end of the year, and it really details the position on the capital programme as set, but where we have had accounting adjustments required to make sure that our spend is reported appropriately either in the revenue or the capital world. So between the two we make sure that our project spend is categorised in the right place. Section 4.5 then notes that of the capital spend we had to record 1.567 of that as revenue, and conversely of Louise's revenue budget we had to include 138,000 of that as capital. So that meant that for the purposes of our annual accounts only we had actual final spend for the year for the resource of 33.256 million. I've got no other points to note, Chair, so if I could refer committee back to the recommendations in section 2 of the report and ask that the Community Enterprise Resources budget of 41.903 million and final spend for the year of 34.685 million be noted. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Any questions on that report?
I've been informed that the YouTube live stream isn't working, or isn't. It still says waiting for it to start. So I don't know if you're aware of that, or if that can be fixed.
I'm aware of that. It was unfortunately something which has cropped up, I think, when just before the meeting. A notice has been put on the website, I think, or it should have been, to advise people of that. It's highly regrettable, but the events will be recorded and will be available shortly on the YouTube channel. So it's unfortunate we start off with that particular hiccup, but just one of those things, I'm afraid. Okay. Any questions on that one? Otherwise, on that, no. In that case, can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. And can we move on to item 5, which is the capital budget monitoring for the first period of this year. And again, it's Lorraine to speak to it, please.
Thank you, Chair. So agenda item 5 then looks at the new year for the resource and reflects the budget and spend position to the 20th of May, which is accounting period 2. Section 3 gives the background to the report and explains how the budget is based on the overall capital programme for the new year, which was approved by the Executive Committee at its meeting on the 29th of June this year. Section 5 then details the financial implications. So section 5.1 notes the resources total capital programme for the year is 64.423 million. The budget's based on the original programme we had for projects approved back in February 2022, and it was updated to include budget carried forward from 21-22 and also additional funding that we had brought into the programme into the current year. So since the approval of the budget in February, other adjustments were approved, which take us to the 64.4. They're detailed in section 5.2 of the report for your information. And they include footpaths and roads improvement fund, £2.5 million, and also a budget for Clyde Bridge. In addition, as had been the case in previous years, it's been identified that to comply with accounting rules, just as I mentioned in the previous report, we have moved some money between revenue and capital. So we've added to the capital programme 1.531 million for roads carriageways, and that's noted in section 5.3 of the report. Section 5.4 notes that the budget position of 64.4 also includes 5.042 million of additional funding awarded to the Council in financial year, and that, along with the 389,000 noted in section 5.5, takes us to the 64.4 million. So that's our budget for the year. In terms of where we are sitting, sorry, apologies, I think I misled you there. We've got spend of 389,000 to the 20th of May out of our total budget of 64.423. And I've got nothing else to report to committee, so I can refer committee back to section 2. And that notes the budget of 64.423 and expenditure to date of 389,000 to the 20th of May. Be noted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that report? I think so, in which case can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Thanks very much. Report's approved. Moving on therefore to item 6, which is the workforce monitoring report. In this instance, Eileen McPake is going to report on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is the standard workforce monitoring report presented to committee with the workforce monitoring information for community and enterprise resources covering the period April and May 2022. So section 4.1 of the report outlines maximising attendance statistics for committee, and the details are in Appendix 1. So the resource absence figure for May 2022 was 6.3%, which represents a decrease of 0.6% when compared to the previous month. And then if you compare it to the same period last year, the figure has increased by 0.4%. And the figure is 0.9% higher than the council-wide figure. So based on absence figures as at May 2022, the projected annual average absence for the resource for the year 22-23 is 6.6%, compared to a council-wide figure of 5.5%. So managers continue to follow the procedures outlined in our maximising attendance policy to make sure that employees are supported to remain at work and return to work after any absence. And personnel continue to work closely with the resource management team to ensure that the appropriate actions and supports are taken. In terms of COVID absence, just by way of context, the council-wide absence at time of the report being produced was 4.73%, and of that 1.07% was related to COVID absence. If we look at the figure just last week, as I say, just for information for committee, the council-wide figure for absence was 4.5%, with 0.8% relating to COVID absence. Moving on then, section 4.2 details occupational health information, and again there's more detail in Appendix 2. So that during the period there was 230 occupational health referrals, an increase of 17 compared to the same period last year, and there was also a subsequent increase in physiotherapy referrals and referrals to the early intervention officer. Section 4.3 outlines accidents and incidents, and there was 21 accidents or incidents recorded during the period, and that figure remains the same when compared to the same period last year. Monitoring of incident reports continues. At section 4.4, discipline, grievance and dignity at work, there was 7 disciplinary hearings during the period. There was no grievance hearings and there was no dignity at work issues raised. Moving on then to section 4.5, as detailed in Appendix 2, there was 24 leavers during the period, and of those leavers, 4 exit interviews were conducted. So the exit interview process is encouraged and is voluntary. At section 4.7, this details that 75 employees that left the resource during the period. Managers indicated that 70 of these posts would be filled, and the other 5 posts came to an end due to the end of a fixed term contract. And then section 5 details the staffing watch information for the resource. So as at March 2022, there was a decrease of 69 employees compared to the December 2021 statistics, and this is primarily due to the reduction in seasonal appointments coming to an end. So there are no employee, financial or other implications, and I'm referring committee back to section 2 and ask that they approve the recommendation that the employment information for community and enterprise resources for April and May 2022 be noted. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Eileen. Any questions on that report? The COVID thing's obviously still, having an effect on the absence figures, unfortunately, distorting it a bit. Okay, let me move the report.
I'll second it.
Thanks very much, Maureen. And can we move on to the other substantial items for decision? Item 7, Planning and Building Standards, the request for additional officers. Could I ask Tony Finn to speak to that?
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to seek approval from the committee to increase the capacity within the Planning and Building Standards Service establishment. The report before you today considers both parts of the service separately. Starting with the planning service, section 3 of the report sets out the current position in terms of upcoming changes to the planning system, and also the recent increase in the number of planning applications and enforcement inquiries received by the Council. It also describes the anticipated impact of the increase in planning application fees that came into force on the 1st of April. The outcome of that is set out in the tables in Appendix 1 of the report, and it shows a healthy increase in income if new fees were to be applied to applications submitted in the previous 3 years. Irrespective of that outcome, there has been a real-time increase in fee income over the last 2 years, and the report sets out this includes an over-recovery of £394,000 comparing income with the budget. A review of the needs of the service has been carried out in light of this and the challenges experienced in recent recruitment exercises. So the proposals set out in section 4 of the report include converting 4 existing fixed-term graduate posts into permanent positions, the creation of a planning assistant post to carry out a range of administrative tasks currently done by officers, and also the creation of an additional post at advanced officer level, whose focus would be on the management of developer contributions. In terms of building standards, similarly, there have been difficulties in recruiting the right people following recent recruitment exercises, and that in turn has meant a number of posts currently remain unfilled. This comes at a time when the reappointment of the Council as the verifier of building warrant applications, when it comes up for renewal in 2023, and which is currently under consideration by Scottish ministers. A threat is that the length of the appointment, and the Council currently has a maximum available of 6 years, may be reduced. In addition, significant changes to the bidding regulations have been or are about to be introduced. And this includes in relation to fire safety and also energy performance of new buildings. The expectations in terms of on-site monitoring and compliance is also set to be greater going forward. A review of the future needs of this part of the service has also been carried out, and taking into account these impending changes to work streams and the failure to fill all of the building surveyor posts. In a similar vein, there's been an over-recovery of fee income compared to budget of £744,000 over the last 2 years. There is a small error at the end of section 6.8 of the report. I think it looks like a part of a sentence has been deleted. However, essentially, the proposal is to seek to recruit inspectors rather than building surveyors. Inspectors can be drawn from a much wider range of skills and backgrounds and would free up surveyors' time to concentrate on other aspects of the work currently being done by doing site inspections. So, as a result of this review, it's proposed that 4 existing vacancies at building standard surveyor level are redesignated into building inspector posts, that 4 temporary posts within this category are converted into permanent contracts, and that an additional building standard inspector on a parent contract is created. So the recommendation, Chair, is to approve the changes set out in the front page of the report. Back to you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Tony. I think this is a good news report in many respects, in the sense of additional staff funded by additional fees coming in from this greater activity in this section, as it were. Any questions? Councillor Watson.
Thanks for the report, Tony. And yeah, we like good news reports growing up. But I think, Tony, given some of the discussions you and I have had recently and the issues surrounding recruitment, how confident are you that we can recruit these posts? And second point would be, is there scope for, and I might be totally off the wall here, getting more graduate training in graduate planning officers and expanding that programme, or apprentices to bolster the planning teams? Thanks.
Tony?
Just to you, Chair. In terms of confidence, in terms of recruiting, Councillor Watson, we have been out a couple of times to try and recruit recently over a range of level of officers. It has been proved challenging. I think it's particularly graduate level. The number of planning courses in Scotland has reduced, and the number of people who are attending those courses has also been reduced. So we are competing with other authorities, probably in a much smaller pool. But we think that moving from the temporary contract situation to a permanent contract is going to help entice people to apply to us and take posts up if they're offered them. We have recruited a number of graduates over the last 2-3 years. I'm going to say half a dozen. I might be wrong in that number, but round about that figure. They've all been very successful. They've come in full of enthusiasm and made a really good impact. Interestingly, the planning assistant post that we're seeking approval for today, we are intending, if a course becomes available, to put that person through a part-time education course to train as a planner. So that's another opportunity going forward as well. Hope that answers your question.
Are there any issues, Tony, through that with Scottish Government? You mentioned that there'd been a reduction of planning posts and so forth at universities and things. Is that a matter of funding, or is it a matter of workforce planning, or do we have any background information that would be relevant to that? Oops.
Yeah, back to you, Chair. Interestingly, a report was published recently following research carried out by the Heads of Planning Scotland, the RTPI, and by the government. I think it's called the Future Planners Report, and it is looking at various measures to try and improve the image of planning and to try and bolster certainly the education side of things, trying to increase the number of places available undergraduate and postgraduate courses. So we're hoping that once the action plan in that report is implemented, that will certainly increase the number of graduates that are available. But I think it's been a long recognised situation that planning hasn't had the same focus or the same desire for people to become involved as a career. But hopefully the measures that are included in this report will change that.
Thanks very much. Councillor McCreary.
Thanks, Chair. Tony, can I ask, is it possible to take on apprentices rather than graduates? Is that an opportunity? Obviously, it's a longer-term fix, but I just wonder if that's an option.
At the moment, it's not, because there isn't a course available that would allow a modern apprentice to attend on a day release purpose. That did happen traditionally, but that avenue stopped, I'm going to say 5 years ago, but it's still not available at the moment. But that's one of the things that the report looks at, that I mentioned, to try and encourage much younger people to come into planning at an earlier age. Interestingly, building standards, yesterday we started a modern apprentice in building standards. They're going to be joining a course that starts at the end of the month for 2 years. So it does work if the resources are there. Yeah.
Following on just from the point on apprentices, you mentioned modern apprentices. Have you looked at the use of graduate apprentices? Because obviously there are those university courses, and also it would allow part-time as opposed to full-time.
Sorry, through you, Chair. Yes, I think we are trying to recruit more graduates that have passed the degrees, but we're also keen, and I think the planning assistant post that's part of this report, the recommendation, would fall into that category. So we could take them and put them through a career development course, which would end up getting them a degree in planning. So there is that opportunity there. It's just that the opportunities in educational terms are fairly limited at the moment.
Okay, people happy with that? Thank you very much. It's obviously an ongoing situation again. Oh, Councillor Lockhart, sorry, I beg your pardon. Just a minute, where's that? Oops, we lost him. Councillor Lockhart.
I'm speaking, but no one can pick me up.
No, we can hear you now, Richard.
Ah, right, okay. Yes, Tony, just a word on the recruitment. I mean, in terms of what you might call bang for your buck, there is a shortage, a clear shortage, obviously, of available recruits, but it strikes me you can get about 3 planning assistants, or at least 2 planning assistants for 1 advanced planning officer. And bearing in mind the amount of work that there is to do, I've had quite a lot of complaints about inspections, or people who've made complaints and then it takes weeks for anyone to get around to seeing them. And I'm just wondering, in terms of the recruitment, what more you can do, if you like, to improve the numbers on the ground that you have to do what I would call perhaps more menial or lower grade tasks.
Tony.
Through you, Chair. Yes, I mean, as I've said, one of the recommendations is to create the planning system post. It's a starting point. It's something that we're just moving into, and I think we'd like to explore what the impact of this is in the longer term to see if creation of additional posts of this level and this nature would be beneficial to the service going forward. So I think we want to take stock once someone's in place, and then take a view whether we want to increase the number going forward. It might be that that's the way forward if we do fail to recruit at the post that we have failed up till now. Hope that answers your question.
Okay, are people satisfied with that? That's been a reasonably thorough go through on that one, I think. Can we approve the report? I move the recommendations.
I'll second it.
Thanks very much. Oh, yes. Item 8 is the Hamilton Town Centre Business Improvement District, where we had some declarations of interest. I ask the members to leave the room and we'll send for you in a minute. Thank you very much. Can I ask Ian Ross to speak to the report?
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. The purpose of this report is to seek ongoing approval, support of the Hamilton Business Improvement District. Hamilton BID have been trading for around 10 years under the trading name of Hamilton Our Town, and support the town centre and the businesses through a variety of partnership projects, working with the council and the businesses to support the town centre. The BID legislation requires that each 5-year period there is a renewed ballot to test the support of the businesses for the BID and the BID business plan, and that process has come around with the existing 5-year period due to come to an end on the 31st of October. The BID are putting arrangements in place for a ballot to be undertaken, working with the election team of the council, as is in the normal practice, excuse me, and the process will be run as a an election in the same way that the members will be familiar with. Section 4 of the report, it sets out the ways in which the Council are asked to support the bid going forward, and each of those bullet points at section 4.1 is entirely in line with the support that's been provided over the 2 previous 5-year periods amounting to the last 10 years. The ballot will be due to take place over a 40-day period up to the end of early part of October, and the Council will have the opportunity to vote in favour or against the proposal for the properties for which we have an interest. So if I can just take you back to section 2 of the report, where it is recommended that the Council continue to support the bid to deliver the objectives of the Business Improvement District, and that the Council support the proposal at section 4 of the report to provide support to the bid throughout that 5-year period, should the ballot be successful. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Ian. That's, again, I think, a very good news report, a lot of good work being done there. Any questions on the report? Councillor Clark.
Yes, I believe Councillor Dewar would have wanted to say a few things, so I have his notes. The SNP Group welcomed the work done by the Hamilton bid team over the past 5 years in promoting and organising events in the Hamilton Town Centre for the benefits of local businesses and residents alike. Colin and I both spoke to Malcolm, the bid manager, Colin probably more so in depth, about how the board have an ongoing vision for improving the town centre, and the business plan for 2022 to 27 reflects this. And personally, I've attended a couple of the markets in the last couple of weekends, and it's fantastic seeing that people have gone into the town centre for this sort of thing, and the amount of local businesses that were there. I mean, it was mobbed, and you had the bandstand with dance groups, singers. You had a drag acts the other weekend as well. It's been fantastic work, and we hope to see it continue.
Quite a useful background input, so thank you for that. Any other questions on that? Can we therefore move the report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, I'm sure you'll be delighted but not surprised to know that report was approved, so thank you for your attendance on that one. Item 9 is the Community Benefit Funds, the Renewable Energy Fund grant application, pages 81 to 4. Can I ask Kenny Lean to speak to that one, please?
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to consider a grant application to the Renewable Energy Fund from Lighthouse Golf Club for grounds maintenance machinery. Under the background, paragraph 3, we just set out that grant awards over £20,000 required to come to committee, and below £20,000 are undertaken by delegated authority. In paragraph 4, we set out some of the detail. So the application, the total project value is £97,536. with a proposed grant award of £48,768, which is 50%. 4.3 sets out some organisation details of the organisation Lighthouse Golf Club. And I'll point out at 4.4 some of the additional benefits in terms of the club endeavours to improve the vitality of Lighthouse and the rural villages surrounding it, and work closely with local businesses to enhance tourism. 4.5 gives some more detail, just exactly what is being grant funded, which is 2 ride-on machineries, one for the fairways and one for the rough areas, a pedestrian lawnmower and a trailer. 4.7 demonstrates the scoring. It was scored by 2 appraisers and scored well. At 4.8, the full funding package is detailed, and I can confirm here just now that the application to the Clyde Wind Farm Fund has been approved by the community panel, so the match funding for this project is in place. I have no other items on this, so I would refer back to paragraph 2 and that a grant be awarded to Lead Hills Golf Club of up to $48,768 from the Renewable Energy Fund to facilitate the Lead Hills Golf Club grounds maintenance machinery.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that report? Nothing, I don't think. Okay, can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Thanks very much. That report's approved. Item 10, again on community benefit funds, the annual report, pages 85 to 94. Can I again ask Kenny to speak to that one? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to provide an update on the community benefit funds administered by Planning and Economic Development Services on behalf of the Council during 21 and 22, and this is the annual report. So background between 3.1 and 3.7, we set out just the overall governance of the fund, and I would point out that at 3.2 we now have 42 wind farms contributing into the Renewable Energy Fund, and over the 7 years from 2015 to 2016, the Council has made awards of 8.81 million and 645 projects have been supported. I go then to paragraph 4, which is the detail on the RAF, and I would point out at the first sentence in 4.1 we say 41 wind farms. It is, I can confirm, 42. So small error there. In 4.2, the contributions to the wind farm are noted as 1.7 million. At 4.3, we give a little bit more detail, and Appendix 1 gives a full list of projects funded in the last financial year. So 52 projects were funded. At 4.4, 4.5 and 4.6, we talk about the microgrants, and the microgrants from the RAF are available to all community councils across South Lanarkshire. And in 21, 22, 25 community councils were funded. So 4.5 summarises the financial commitments made by the fund in 21, 22. So 52 grants were awarded, 25 community grants were awarded, a total of 77 grants, and a value of 1.163847 million. Similarly, Clyde Wind Farm Fund sets out the detail. So in 21-22, the income was 975,046. This funded 12 projects noted at 5.2 and included in the Appendix 3. 5.4 sets out similarly the community councils and the microgrants funded, and that there were 5 at a total value of 16,349. So completely in total for the Clyde Wind Farm Fund, there was a value of 367,298 committed in 21-22 over 17 grants. Item 6, we undertook a publicity report last year, and we are simply advising that we would consider doing that report again this year and circulating it to community organisations and community councils. I would point out at item 9, under the climate change, sustainability and environmental implications, that there are a number of projects that have been funded through this that supports the council's priorities around about sustainability. No other additional comments on this at that point. I would refer back to paragraph 2. So note that the community benefit funds administered by the council and the grants awarded under the RAF and the Clyde Wind Farm funds and quarry funds in 21-22, and approve that the completion of a publicity report for the community benefit grants 21-22 is completed. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kenny. Any questions on that one? Clearly, this is a very, welcome source of funds, which has been of benefit right across the council area and its priorities. So we're very thankful for that. Councillor Lockhart.
bearing in mind the last 6 months, 1 year or so, the rapidly escalating costs, and I would imagine rapidly escalating profits, perhaps, from some of these wind farm people, whether there isn't some form of escalation clause, because the reality is everyone else's costs are going up, and if they're very generously paying up what they are, but related to prices and the deal done several years ago, perhaps they can be asked if there is some way they can look to increase what they're putting in. I don't know whether it's possible retrospectively, but I think we ought to be looking at that.
That sounds an absolutely excellent point, Richard. I don't know if Kenny can comment on that.
I think it is an excellent point. The contracts are signed, the legal agreements are signed on a basis of a fixed sum per megawatt. So there is inflation allowed for, so it should be reflected in that respect in terms of the inflation figures and going up, but not in terms of necessarily the profits made by electricity companies or other investors around that.
David?
Again, thank you very much. I think Councillor Lockhart raises an interesting point, and certainly maybe it will be something that we might want to consider as we move forward, is somehow linking the contributions to the rate that the organisations receive for their energy. Again, the only sort of note of caution around about that is that those can fluctuate down as well as up. So there is a risk in that, but it's certainly something that we could look at as we move forward. Thanks.
I think that is something that's worth looking at, so we'll have a further go at that one, I think, see what the implications might be of that. Thanks very much indeed. Can I move the report if there's no further questions?
I'll second it.
Thanks very much indeed. Item 11 is the Lanarkshire Leader Programme and Replacement, pages 95 to 154. And again, Kenny Lean is in the starring role on this one too.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is twofold. Firstly, is to provide a summary of the evaluation of the 2014-2020 Lanarkshire Leader Programme, and secondly, to seek approval for the delivery of a new rural community-led local development programme replacing Leader. Under paragraph 3, we give some detail around about the background of Leader, and I'll make some highlights. At 3.1, the Council has delivered the rural community-led local development through Leader since 2002 through 3 iterations of the programme. At 3.2, highlight the fact that the Council has got accountable body and financial responsibilities for running this programme, and also that it's Lanarkshire-wide, covering North and South Lanarkshire. The Leader programme ran until December 2021 with a total value of just over £4 million, as noted at 3.3. 3.4 sets out some of the strategy that was used. So the local development strategy for the Lanarkshire Leader programme was developed at the very start of the programme. The programme set out 3 themes, and I'll simply highlight the headings and not the detail. Theme 1, developing communities. Theme 2, growing businesses. And Theme 3, heritage, culture and the environment. Paragraphs 3 to 5 set out the governance and the staffing arrangements. I won't go into those in detail just now. Item 4 covers the evaluation, which was part of the contract with the government in terms of delivering this programme, and I would highlight out paragraph 4.2 in detail. The evaluation concluded that the programme was successful and delivered on time and in budget, fulfilling the government's conditions and focused on the priorities developed by the partnership. The programme invested £3.1 million through 40 projects over 6 years, with the rural communities, and levered in 84 pence for every £1 of grant. The programme supported 28 social enterprises and not-for-profit organisations and 11 businesses. The full evaluation and lessons learnt are attached in Appendix 1, and a full list of the projects on page 52. 4.5 identifies some of the lessons learned pulled out from that evaluation report. Going forward, at paragraph 5, sets out the new programme. In May 2022, the Scottish Government published guidance on funding to replace LEADER. On 8th of June, the Lanarkshire allocation from this fund for 2022-23 was confirmed as £282,826 to cover 9 months' worth of activity. I would note that that is substantially less than the LEADER programme previously ran, which was £660,000. 5.3 sets out the activity undertaken so far by the local action group to identify the priorities. Some of these priorities are provided by the government in terms of guidance, and further work has been done to identify these as the priorities within Lanarkshire. 5.4, 5.5 are notes to the change of the staffing due to the changes in the budget. At 5.6 and 5.7, we set out an awareness programme, an awareness raising programme for the fund to commence in August, with a highlight being the Rural Conference in October 2022, where community groups and organisations will be brought together to consult on the future strategy and on existing funding available. I would highlight also point 7 in terms of the financial implications, that the Council is the accountable body and administers this fund, working with local partnerships. I'd also highlight at 8.1, the fund very closely aligns with our sustainability and environmental implication strategies. I would also point out at 6.1 that although the staffing directly arranged with LEADER will be changing, that there will be no overall changing to the staff within this area of economic development. Having no other points to raise there, I would refer back to paragraph 2 with 3 items. Note the outcomes of the evaluation of the LEADER 24-14-2020 programme. Approve the development and delivery of the Rural Community-Led Local Development Programme as set out at sections 5.4 and 5.5. And approve that the delivery of a rural conference as part of the consultation and community process as set out at 5.7 be approved. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kenny. I think that's a very interesting and important report, and if people have read it right through, there's quite a lot of very interesting examples and case studies behind it as well. Any questions on the report? No questions. Thank you very much. Can I therefore move the report? We look very much forward to the rural conference and the various activities of the local action group as well as we go forward.
I'll second it.
Thanks very much, Maureen. Item 12 is the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, pages 155 to 162. And again, Kenny Lean to speak.
Thank you, Chair. And I think you will be fed up of hearing me by now. But this report is regarding the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. The purpose of the report is to advise the committee of the launch of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and to outline a proposed approach for the Council's input into the proposed Glasgow City Region Investment Plan. Paragraph 3 sets out the overall overview of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and I would highlight that although it has been in preparation since probably 2017, the actual prospectus was only launched on the 13th of April 2022. I would note at 3.3, the UK Shared Prosperity Fund forms part of the UK Government's Levelling Up strategy, targeting funding at those areas most in need. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund's overall aim is levelling up the economy, economic opportunity across regions and building pride of place through economic actions. At paragraph 4.1 to 4.2, the report sets out the very high-level UK budgetary background to this over the next 3 years. I would identify at 4.3 a unique aspect within the fund, which is a priority and a ring-fenced allocation of funding for Multiply, which is a programme around adult numeracy. Section 4.5 sets out the allocation. This is an allocation method, not a challenge fund method. So South Lanarkshire Council has been allocated 12.2 million over the next 3 years, as per the table set out under 4.5. Also worth noting is at 4.6 that the Council can take a 4% administration fee from this for delivering the programme. Paragraph 5 identifies the priorities set by the UK Government, and the 3 bullet points are worth highlighting. They are communities in place, supporting local business, and people and skills. 5.2 to 5.5 provide more detail. I won't go through those at the moment. Paragraph 6 identifies the process from the UK Government to submit an investment plan. The investment plan requires to be submitted to the Government as identified on the next page by the 1st of September this year. Paragraph 7 sets out the approach being adopted. The approach being that the Glasgow City Region Cabinet, at the meeting held on the 15th of February, agreed to work as the 8 local authorities and prepare one investment plan for submission to the UK Government. This was the preferred method by the UK Government for areas to work as city region and groupings of local authorities. What I would point out at 7.4, though, and furthermore in paragraph 8, is the investment plan that South Lanarkshire prepares will be South Lanarkshire's investment plan incorporated within a Glasgow City region and is not shaped at the Glasgow City region. Paragraph 8, in terms of developing the South Lanarkshire investment plan, I would highlight 8.2, that significant partnership discussions have been ongoing since the launch of the prospectus, and the full list of partners engaged with are set out there. I would also set out at 8.3 some of the areas that we've recognised as important in terms of developing the investment plan, which is, this is replacing previous EU funding, and that EU funding used to fund, still does fund, employability services and business support services, and it was paramount to ensure that those services are retained and there's no interruption when EU funds stop in 2023. I would highlight at point 9, I'll carry on at point 8.4. I would set out the priorities in Appendix 1, which is the priorities for South Lanarkshire Council, chosen from the options of investment given by the UK Government, and now those will be included within the Glasgow City Region's investment plan. At item 9, I set out the fact that we would be intending to use the 4% administration allocation to ensure the running of this project and this programme over the coming 3 years. No other points to raise through that. I would refer back to paragraph 2. So, for the committee to note the publication of the UK Shares Prosperity Fund, including the associated financial allocations, approve the general approach to the development of the Glasgow City Region Investment Plan as outlined in sections 7 and 8 of the report, approve that the priorities for the South Lanarkshire as set out in Appendix 1 be approved, and note the further reports will be brought to the committee on the detailed outcomes of the investment plan and progress on the delivery. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Kenny. That's quite a comprehensive report on really a very important issue. I think I'll resist the temptation to make any comment about the red tape that the withdrawal from the European Union has produced. But the essential issues here seem to me to be the Glasgow City regional approach to the matter, and then the projects being taken forward, the priorities we've got. Questions, Councillor Clark?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask a few questions. I'll ask my first one and I'll come back in. I noticed that in 4.2, the figure of 1.5 billion per year, which is broadly equivalent of the EU structural fund, is only reached in the final year, and that the funding for the first year appears significantly less than the second, and the same for second to third year. And it's similar, as you see in South Lanarkshire figures in 4.5. How does South Lanarkshire's funding from this compare to previous years under EU funding?
Yep, thank you. Sorry, I was just checking the mic. So yes, there is tapering. So EU funding is currently tapering out, and that happens through financial year 23-24. And that is one of the reasons why this funding is tapering in. So there is a background to the UK government's use of these figures. The other thing that is worth noting, that this is an increase to the council on the level of funding that has come. So it's more than a direct replacement, it's direct plus.
Okay, thank you. And secondly, how do we ensure that volunteer-led community groups receive support and funding to ensure their long-term sustainability? Because I don't see that explicitly mentioned in Appendix 1. Because I'll use an example in my own ward. I met with the Larkhall community growers and the people involved in the community plan who do fantastic work in Larkhall, such as the community gardens, our place, our plan, I think it was called, and as well as many other things in the community. And groups like this would benefit from support going forward, as they're made up of, volunteers who devote so much of their time, which I say isn't sustainable long term with what they want to do and the aims that they have. So is that something which can be, done from these priorities, giving them more long term sustainability?
Yep, thank you, Chair. Yes, there is that always problem with grant funding. It comes to an end for projects, and I'm well aware of the projects in Larkhall. We've been working closely with Vaslan, we've been working closely with some of the other partners to discuss how this programme can fund and support those type of activities. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund can fund grant funding and revenue funding, so there will be a combination of that within this programme as we develop, but the detail of that still needs to be undertaken at the moment. At the moment, we're still dealing with the UK government in terms of what the high-line priorities are, but there would be an intention, especially around about aspects of sustainability and when environmental sustainable type projects and the green agenda. So I would say we recognise that, but at the end of the day, it's still a 3-year programme, and we're already, due to the timescales, nearly 6 months into the start of this.
And Councillor Lockhart.
South Lanarkshire Council for their distribution. This is not going via the Scottish Government in any way.
Sorry.
Yeah, Councillor, yes, this is from the UK Government direct to South Lanarkshire Council. It will, go through the Glasgow City region, but it does not go to the Scottish Government.
Can I have a supplementary question?
Sure.
Very briefly, once it's got to the council, I mean, I'm involved in land, we've got the Community Development Trust and various other bodies, Vision for Land and all those sort of things. There's no payment direct to them at all. All of that will be filtered through your dispersal of those funds, am I correct?
You're correct. The fund, the fund allows for direct payment within the council, so direct service delivery. It allows for grant funding and procurement. So it would be done through grant programmes and challenge funds for any money, and there will be projects available for community organisations as we've discussed.
Thank you.
Councillor McCreary.
Thanks, Chair. Kenny, I think you've answered my first question, because it was going to be, is this more money from the UK government than was received from the EU? But you said yes, I think. Can you give us a rough feeling of how much more, even in percentage terms? I don't need the exact figure, you know, just roughly.
It's approximately 3 times more than we have received in the last financial year.
Thank you very much.
And what is that? Sorry if I supplemented that. I missed the button there. What's the kind of number? Do you know roughly the number? The actual figure?
So when I'm saying 3 times...
Sorry, we switched off again. Sorry.
When I say 3 times, what we're projecting here is when it's at its full in year 3, and the financial profile, I'm just trying to see it here just now, is 7.1 million per year. Now, we're projecting that it will continue after that at around about that level, but that's the future. So that 7.1 is probably around about 3 times higher than the council receives at the moment through business support and employability. But what we have to remember is there were other projects within South Lanarkshire that maybe received EU funding into colleges, universities, direct to community groups. So that money isn't going that way. So it might not be 3 times more coming to South Lanarkshire, but it's 3 times more coming to South Lanarkshire Council.
Okay, thank you very much. And just for the avoidance of doubt, this is definite money for 3 years. We don't know the position after that, but for the 3 years, we're sure of this money. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Councillor Watson.
Yeah, I think it's important that that figure's out there, because I can see some headline grabbing stuff about the UK government funding 3 times more than the European did, and not taking into consideration a number of other funding streams from the EU, not just in this field, but in a number of other fields as well. And I think it's quite disappointing as well to read at 4.3 that the UK government's wanting to ring-fence money through education when education's devolved. And it's probably a point I note that education is devolved, and yet we have here the UK government want to march over the Scottish government and local education. But I say that's probably for noting rather than anything else.
I think that's an observation, isn't it, David, rather than something that requires a response. I think I've got an inclination to agree with some of your comments there. I think the complications of leaving the EU, I think, have been very significant and very far-reaching, which this is just one. However, our job is to administer and deal with the arrangements that are coming through, and I think the money to that degree is welcome. Can I therefore, if there's no further questions, move the report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much indeed. And move on to item 13, which is the Scottish Government Regeneration Capital Grant Fund proposal to create a rural development at Lanark Racecourse, pages 163 to 168. Again, Ian Ross, please. Sorry, I should have put you in there.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me, sorry. The purpose of this report is to update committee on the revised proposals for the delivery of a rural development centre and the successful application for funding from the Scottish Government. Also to seek approval to progress the project in line with these revised proposals and to outline the wider work being implemented to support Lanark Racecourse. At section 3, we set out the background of this project over a number of years. It was originally intended through this funding to develop the Rural Development Centre on a site known locally as Alston Yard on Lady Acre Road. However, ownership of that site couldn't be secured at that time, and alternative proposals were considered on the property known locally as the Stone Rotunda at the Braidfoot Retail Park. However, yet again, the ownership of the retail park changed and the new owners took a different approach to the project, resulting in us not being able to proceed. Subsequently, we have identified land on or sites on the racecourse which we believe would be suitable for the delivery of this project, and we have begun a consultation through the Common Good process under which the racecourse is held and is fundamental to the decision-making process. As that process is an 8-week consultation process, and we are approximately halfway through that consultation. In the interim, we are taking steps to progress design and occupation agreements with the interested parties, and assuming the matters go well, we would seek to formalise that moving forward. Section 4 notes that the Scottish Government have given their agreement to revising the proposals in the way proposed, and at Section 4.7 you'll see that there are some revised outputs of the project compared with that originally envisaged. These are mainly around some of the constraints within the new site and a different approach to some of the occupation. I would just note at the final bullet point within section 4.7 that there is reference to the Lanark Community Development Trust. That's a slight inaccuracy within the report. That should have read the Lanark Committee, and we've flagged, or that's been discussed with the Lanark Community Development Trust, who have noted that error and asked that we clarify that at committee today, but have also asked that we note their ongoing interest and support for the project moving forward. At section 5, we note that the development of these two proposals has highlighted the opportunity to look at the racecourse more widely and maximise the use and benefit of the racecourse as a leisure and destination for the community of Lanark, and we are in the process of appointing a consultant to undertake that work, which will be carried out in consultation with the community groups and fed through the Common Good process as appropriate. So I would just take you back to section 2 of the report and the recommendations that the proposed changes to the project be noted for the revised delivery, that the ongoing work in terms of bringing forward legal agreements and the undertaking of the Common Good consultation be noted, that the investment of the Regeneration Capital Grant funding to create these two facilities be approved, and subject to the Common Good consultation, and that the wider consultation work in relation to the future of the wider racecourse asset be noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ian. And I think this is clearly a very exciting project, albeit one that's had a bit of a saga behind it. So it's good to see it going forward. Any questions on that? No questions. Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Thanks very much, Maureen. Can I move on to item 14, Scottish Government Vacant and Derelict Land Fund Programme 22 to 23, pages 169 to 174. And Ken Meek in this instance to speak, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just run through the report. The purpose of the report is to advise committee of progress made during financial year 2021-22 in implementing the delivery plan for the Scottish Government financed Vacant and Derelict Land Fund, Vdlf, and also to seek approval for the Vdlf programme as set out in the report for 2022-23. If we refer to section 3, it notes that our allocation in 21-22 financial year was £737,000, and that delivery plan with projects associated with it was approved by committee on the 28th of September 2021. There are 4 bullet points in section 3.1 which set out the key objectives of the Vacant and Derelict Land Fund, and it's worth noting in section 3.3 that South Lanarkshire is one of a very small number of local authorities in Scotland to benefit from the fund. The fund has some fairly strict eligibility criteria, which is set out in the 4 bullet points in section 3.3. including the requirement for the fund to be a long-term vacant derelict land site on the Vacant Derelict Land Register and of a specific size. It also does not support projects where the outcome is housing related. Section 4 sets out the progress which was achieved in 2021-22 at Kaningar Loop Phase 2, which is a project that has been delivered by Clyde Gateway, and the allocation of funding to that project was 500,000. Kaningar Loop is a large site of over 27 hectares, which the Council, in conjunction with Clyde Gateway and Forestry and Land Scotland, have been working on for over 10 years. And the Phase 2 projects attracted other funding contributions of over £4 million. Unfortunately, the site works didn't start until later than anticipated due to ecological issues, but I'm pleased to say that the main works have been completed on site and the public should be gaining access to the site in due course. There's a slight error there in that paragraph in relation to car park access road and pedestrian footpath, which are still to be completed, and they should complete in November 2022, not July. As I say, the park should open to members of the public this month, and that will be accessed from the Phase 1 side. In terms of the other allocation in 2021-22, that was the Cunningar Loop Phase 3 project, which had an allocation of £237,000. It was a project that was to provide much needed food growing and allotment space in the Rutherglen area, and the intention is still to provide that once the car park access road and pedestrian footpaths are completed. There will be at least 50 allotments with raised beds, a car park for allotment users, storage provision and associated shelters and paths for users. In Section 5, we have the 2022-23 Vdlf proposal for the delivery plan. Again, we have been allocated £737,000 by Scottish Government, and a local delivery plan has been prepared and provided to Scottish Government. Again, the focus is at Cunningar Loop, where Clyde Gateway would like to complete the greening of that site on an area known as Phase 3 with an allocation of 500,000. That will be topped up with other funding bids that they're currently working on. And that would bring to an end the inclusion of the 27 hectare site on the Vacant Derelict Land Register with the remediation and reuse of this 4 hectare site. That project will link up with the Phase 1 and Phase 2 sites and provide similar sort of facilities for the communities of Rutherglen and the East End of Glasgow. In terms of the remainder of the fund in 2022-23, the proposal is to increase the food growing budget for the Cunningar Loop Phase 3 project, which is being delivered by South Lanarkshire Council. As we're all too well aware, inflationary increase in the cost of living has not missed the construction market, and as we emerge from COVID-19, we are also experiencing supply chain issues as a result of Brexit and as a result of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The estimated costs for the food growing allotment project have increased significantly, and this additional request for funding in the delivery plan for 2022-23 reflects that additional funding requirement for the project. To summarise in 5.2, the 2022-23 allocation, the proposed allocation for Vdlf is £500,000 for the Cunningar Loop Phase 3 greening project to be delivered by Clyde Gateway, and an additional £237,000 to South Lanarkshire Council to deliver the food growing and allotment project at Cunningar Loop Phase 3, which is a continuation of the project that was approved last year. Going back to the recommendations in the report, the committee is asked to approve the progress made during 2021-22 in delivering the Vdlf programme as noted, and that the allocation of funds for the 2022-23 Vacant Derelict Land Fund Delivery Plan as set out in paragraphs 5.1 and 5.2 be approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much. Could I very much welcome this report as a Rutherglen member and invite anyone who hasn't been out to the Cunningar Loop to take a trip out that way if you're looking for a Sunday afternoon walk or whatever, well worthwhile. and I think the spending of this money is also well worthwhile. Any questions on the report? Councillor Nugent.
Doing for the Scottish Government. I wish to acknowledge the ongoing work of Clyde Gateway. The achievements today are quite remarkable. Clyde Gateway has transformed many areas of Torshgolligan and Glasgow East, and I look forward to further regeneration. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. John, were you on the list? You seem to have moved off. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to mention that Carol, both Carol and I sat in the Clyde Gateway Board for the past 5 years and seen the transformation that they have made. It was a bit of a mess down there, and it is good. And like you, although I'm not a Rutherglen councillor, I did stay there once upon a time, and I would recommend people to go and see it. It's a tremendous park, and I wish them well with the further projects that they carry out.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you for your work on the Clyde Gateway partnership as well, because I think it would have been an interesting experience, which I'm succeeding to you on, and I'm looking forward to very much to the work that's involved in it. Anyone else on that one? Can we approve the report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. And move on to item 15, which is the renaming of the 4th recreation ground to the Jim Payton Recreation Ground, pages 175 to 198. David Booth.
Thank you very much, Chair. This report seeks the approval to rename the recreation ground in Forth into the Jim Payton Recreation Ground. The proposal follows a request from Forth Development Trust following a death of a gentleman called Jim Payton, and is in recognition of the work he has done over the years for the youths of the village of Forth. Mr Payton died in December 2021 and was well known to the Forth community. He undertook a lot of charity work, ran marathons, was a founder member of Forth Roadrunners, coached children at badminton and football, and was a manager of Forth Amateurs, Forth Wanderers and Colt Yes United Juniors. Forth Primary School have dedicated an annual shield in memory of Mr Payton. And the area in question is the 2 pitches behind the Willie Waddle Sports and Community Centre, and as demarked in Appendix 1 of the report. Forth Community Trusts have obtained permission from Mr Payton's family at the outset and have consulted with the local community as well as the Ward 2 councillors and have received no objections for the proposed naming of the area after Mr Payton. So again, back to the recommendations. The recommendation is that the committee is asked to approve that the recreation ground behind the Willie Waddle Sport and Community Centre, which is marked within Appendix 1, is renamed Jim Payton Recreation Ground, and that a sign funded by Forth Development Trust is erected with the new name. Thank you.
Thanks so much, David. Any questions on that? I think one is fairly chary about renamings of this kind, but in this instance there seems to be a long history of achievement to go with it. So can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. And item 16, the realignment of the Community Enterprise Resources Senior Management Structure, pages 199 to 206. This is a very important report. David Booth to speak.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is to update the committee on the realignment of the senior management structure for community and enterprise resources. In terms of background, the senior management team within community enterprise resources has depleted over the last year through retirals. This has given me opportunity as incoming executive director to review and modernise the management structure of the resource in order to take on the challenges that face local government moving forward. Section 4 of the report outlines the original community and enterprise senior management structure when the resource was formed by combining community resources and enterprise resources in 2011. Section 5 of the report outlines the need for change and explains the changing environment that the resource has to work in and the various challenges, operational and strategically challenges that the that the resource faces and the council faces into the future. Following an analysis of that projected work, the proposed structure came along the following lines. Roads and transportation services were expanded to include fleet services, bringing together a range of services which are similar in theme. Facilities, waste and ground services remained as facilities, waste and ground services, given that that is a highly operational service that works well in its current form. However, Section 6.5 explains that the support services section for the resource and the performance management policy team, which includes activities related to sustainability and climate change, were removed from the facilities, waste and grounds element of the resource and a new service, which I'll come on to shortly. Environmental services was combined with planning to create a new planning and regulatory services service within the resource. And the recruitment for a new head of planning and regulatory services is underway at the moment, following the retirement of the previous incumbent of that post, Pauline Elliott. And by making these changes to the resource, it's given us the opportunity to create an entirely new service, and that service combines economic development with sustainable development and performance and policy to create what we're calling enterprise and sustainable development, and that will hopefully help us take forward South Lanarkshire's economic recovery in the years after COVID-19. And currently the post of Head of Enterprise and Sustainable Development, the recruitment process for that is ongoing as well. So as we stand at the moment, we have appointed, we'll have a head of roads, transportation and fleet services, Colin Park. We recently started a new head of facilities, waste and grounds, Kevin Carr. The head of planning and regulatory services is currently in recruitment, and the head of enterprise and sustainable development is currently in recruitment. So returning to section 2 of the report, and the committee is just asked to note the contents of this report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. I said at the beginning this was a very important report. I think it is. The realignment, particularly the setting up of the Enterprise and Sustainable Development head, is very much in line with the priorities of the new administration. I suspect as well, frankly, of the old one as well. I think there's a direction of travel that was logical, I think, following on the COVID thing in particular. So I think it's extremely important we get good people in place on these new posts, and that it gives that degree of extra direction to the Council's activities in this area, which I think is very much needed. Any questions on this particular report? No questions? Can I therefore move the report?
I'll second it.
Thanks very much, Maureen. And report's approved. Item 17 is the Town Centre and Place-Based Investment Programme Update and Funding Award 2022-23, pages 207 to 220. Ian Ross in this instance to speak again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, excuse me. The purpose of this report, as you say, is to update members on the first year of the Place-Based Investment Programme. We also provide an update on the Town Centre Capital Programme, and to update members on the allocation of the second year of the Place-Based Investment Programme. At Section 3, we set out the background of the funding that's been allocated to all local authorities from the Scottish Government over the last 3 years, and the Section 3.2, the slightly over £2 million, which was provided for financial year 2021 to 22 for the first year of the Place-Based Investment Programme. At Appendix 1, we set out the projects and initiatives that have been supported through that funding, and these projects are well advanced and due to be completed within the next couple of months. At 3.3, we note the allocation for year 2 of the programme, 22-23 at £1.7 million, and note that we now also have confirmation for the remaining 3 years of the programme, all 3 years of which will be at just over £1.2 million per annum, giving an overall programme of just £7.3 million. The section 4 of the report, we note that at the meeting of this committee in June last year, it was noted that due to the election pressures, the opportunity to report in the normal programme was limited, and therefore at that meeting authority was given to the Executive Director to allocate the funding in line with the assessment process that had been used previously, and those proposals are set out for you at Appendix 2 of the report. These projects are all sorry, not all. Sorry, there are a mix of projects within the proposed programme, working with a range of community groups and priorities within the council. And as I say, Appendix 2, you'll have a list of these projects with the proposed allocation. So if I could just take you back again to section 2 of the report and ask that the committee note the progress in terms of the year 1 allocation, and also note the allocation of the year 2 programme. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Ian. Questions, Councillor Watson? Oops, missed it.
Thanks, Chair. In Appendix 1, the East Kilbride Civic Master Plan is there, and it's in an amber position. Can we get an indication when we'll see a full report on what that master plan is, and with proposals for the civic area in East Kilbride? And second point is in Appendix 2, Captain Home United, the Captain Home pitches is flagged as red and saying potentially now 23-24 project. Can we get a reason for that? It's quite a project that would help disability sports people use that facility, and it's quite disappointing to see it getting pushed out for whatever reason.
Thank you, Chair. Just in relation to the Civic Centre and the Town Centre, there are meetings ongoing with the representatives of the Town Centre owner. The Chief Executive and members of the corporate management team have been involved in those meetings. The representatives of the Town Centre have indicated that they hope to be moving this work forward to a conclusion towards the end of the current calendar year, but will be in a better position to update members excuse me, as we move through that work. In relation to Kirkton Home, you'll note that they had 2 proposals that were put forward, one in relation to changing facilities and the other in relation to pitches. We have been able to support the changing facilities and are continuing to work with them in relation to the pitches. Essentially, the costs that were coming in for the pitches were beyond that which we experience in terms of working with colleagues in the Leisure Trust for similar facilities, and we're looking to work with them to help reduce those costs and strengthen the bid. Obviously be for members to decide whether or not that's supported next year, but the firm intention is to work with them to work up a proposal for future submission.
David, do you want to come back on that at all?
Yeah, I'll leave the Captain Home one just now, but I might come back to you separately if you don't mind. The town centre one, and I'm a bit concerned to hear what it could be towards the tail end of the year. Would it be possible to get an interim report of some sort, either to East Kilbride Area Committee or to this committee, of what the direction of thought is?
David.
Yep, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Watson. As Ian says, the work is ongoing at the moment, and we're in discussions with the town centre at the moment as to what the development is. If things have moved to a sufficient level to be able to report, then we would hope to report a potential interim update, perhaps to this next committee or to another of the council's committees. But and that would depend on how much progress has been made in terms of the town centre itself, in terms of taking it forward. But we're working closely with them, along with colleagues across the council. But hopefully we'll be in a position to give an interim update at the next committee. But again, it depends on much progress we've made by that time.
David.
Sorry, Chair, I need to come back on that. I just feel this is a big issue and an important issue for the future of East Kilbride and our civic centre. And I really think we need a bit more information before we're so far down the road it's a fait accompli. Local members in East Kilbride had a presentation on it previously, and I think we gave our thoughts on what was being proposed at that time, and whether these thoughts have been acted on or whatever, I don't know, because we've had no feedback since. And I really do think it is important that we're kept up to speed of the direction of travel and the thought process, because we could go so far down the road, and East Kilbride members might have concerns about it, as we had at the last presentation that we had. Thanks.
Yeah. David, I think we can probably make sure that some sort of report comes to the next meeting, can we not, at the very least? Because I think it's important to know both progress and non-progress, isn't it, on this matter? Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I suppose we certainly can report at the next committee as to where matters stand, and hopefully, there will have been some progress, and it'll be a report that will hopefully satisfy you, Councillor Watson. But it depends how long it takes to get to that stage and what kind of update. But we'll certainly bring something to the next committee, if that's okay.
I think I'll perhaps bring Councillor Fagan in, who's joined the meeting. I think he's got some information he might be able to add on this particular matter, if I'm correct. I'll come to you, Councillor Clark, in a minute.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to pick up. Well, first of all, can I thank David Watson for raising the issue of the Kirkton home football pitches in my ward, and I'm pleased that the issue has not fallen off the radar. Actually, it's something that our officials are working with the football club on, and I think the disabled, the football pitches for disabled athletes would actually be a great addition to the town, and it's something that I've put in a letter of support for, so I'm keen to see that progress. On the town centre, there'll be aspects of this which I think Councillor Watson will appreciate that will be commercially sensitive, and let me. And so there'll be aspects of this that at this particular point will not be appropriate for wider disclosure. However, I think there's now been an assurance that a report will come forward in the interim. Can I just underline for me the importance of the new administration to actually taking forward a bold and ambitious master plan for East Kilbride Town Centre? And can I say to Councillor Watson that not only have the corporate management team of the council met with the new town centre owners, because bear in mind this is one of the other issues, there has actually been a change in ownership at the town centre, so we have new partners to work with, and that will, I think, necessitate a new plan. Can also say I think the plan that was put forward in the past, some members will recall I had some concerns about the scope of it and the ambition within it. We're going to be constrained by economic circumstances and funding, but I think we have to look at a newer, more ambitious plan that takes into account not just the fact that we have new owners, we are operating in a new economic environment, but also the flip side to that is there are potentially new funding streams available that we didn't envisage would be available when we first started talking about a master plan for the town centre 3 or 4 years ago. I just want to underline to everyone as I say, the importance that the administration attached to this, and can I say as I say, in addition to those meetings that the corporate management team have held with the banks and the new owners of the town centre and their agents, and those that they've commissioned to look at this issue, can also say that I met with them as leader of the council with the chief executive, and I think have impressed upon them the importance and the urgency with which a number of councillors in East Kilbride believe we need to see change and progress on this particular issue, and that will include looking at our own presence and footprint within the town centre and how we leverage in investment from other sources.
Thanks very much, Joe. I thought it was useful to have Joe Fagan's input on that one. I hope you don't mind me having taken him slightly out of order there. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. So, yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd like to welcome the Welcome to Lark Hall progress on the project there, because the main street in Lark Hall is a big issue in the sense that, I'll try not to brag, but people in Lark Hall appreciate our town centre. We've got a very good town centre and a very good main street that outperforms probably others in surrounding areas. But one of the problems is that lots of the shops are the same. It's all hairdressers and takeaways, which are fantastic, but it's and there's a bit of a lack of community space. And there's very good things happening in the likes of the pedestrianisation of King Street, which is coming. So that's very exciting as well. And I'd also like to welcome in Appendix 2 more support for the construction of the new leisure centre. I know I've had talks with David Booth about this, and he's also very determined to find more funding for this so we can move it on as quick as possible, and I hope the new administration feels the same way as well. Thanks.
Thanks very much. And Councillor Cowie, I think it's online.
Kappa at the Naples, I take it. And that asked if there's a time scale for this, or when the works will be started.
Margaret, could you start again? I think I personally missed the beginning of your contribution with the time gap then.
Sorry, Robert. Yeah, I would just like to comment on number 42, project 42, the enlargement of the car park at Bernabé Meadows. I welcome this because I've been asking for it for a long time. So have the residents round about in Chapter and Bernhill. But is there a time scale or a start date for it?
Someone, Ian?
Thank you, Chair. I can't give you a firm timescale at the moment, but we have already begun work with colleagues in both community and roads about the design and procurement of the works. We will be able to provide an update in hopefully just a matter of weeks. But the timing of this funding is that it's to be spent within the current financial year, so there's certainly no intention to delay in any way whatsoever. But if it's okay, we'll provide a more detailed update as the programme is pulled together. Thank you, Chair.
I think that's a welcome assurance. I say that as the ward member, along with Margaret, of that particular area, where there is a need for this